Hey everybody. So we've recently been doing a lot of work with evaluating expressions, substitution, the order of operations. Today we're going to focus on writing expressions, turning words and situations into math. Let's start with some keywords that'll give us clues as to what operation is the most appropriate for a situation. When we're dealing with addition, we usually see words like sum, increase, and more than, right? Something that's telling us that an amount is going to grow or get bigger. With subtraction, we're usually talking about amounts getting smaller, so we might see words like decrease or less than. But we also use subtraction to compare amounts. So you also see words like difference, and you also might see questions like how much more or how much less, asking us to compare two different amounts. With multiplication, you'll see words like product, times, you see like 3 times a number, and you'll also see talk about groups, right? 5 groups of 3 or 8 groups of 7. And that's a clue that we need to multiply. You might also see words like twice or double, which means you need to multiply by 2. Triple means you multiply by 3. Quadruple means you need to multiply by 4. So sometimes there's specific words that'll tell you exactly how much you're multiplying by. With fractions and percents, a lot of times you'll see the word of telling us to multiply. If we're looking for 3/5 of a number, we'll multiply whatever number that is by 3 over 5. Or if we want 75% of an amount, we multiply that amount by 0.75. Division is usually pretty straightforward. The only word you'll usually see is quotient. Sometimes you might see the word split, but usually division is pretty obvious. The one that might be the most tricky is deciding where and when to use parentheses. And we'll see a couple examples in a second. Hopefully it'll make it a little more clear about when we need to use those. All right, let's take a look at a few examples here. So in example A, we have the sum of 5 times a number x and 12. So we have the sum of two things. 5 times a number x and 12. Those are the two things we're adding together. So we can write 5 times a number x as 5x, and it's the sum of this and 12. So we're going to add 12 to that. And that's it for that one. Just the sum of 5 times x plus 12. That's it. Now the next problem here, we have 12 less than the quotient of a number r and 3. So this one's a little tricky. Whenever we have less than or more than, that's actually going to come at the end, because whatever we're starting with, if it says less than, we're going to take 12 away from that. So I'm going to start by writing minus 12. Now the next part is the quotient of a number r and 3. There's a few different ways to write this. In algebra, usually we show division, that's what quotient tells us to do, by using a fraction. So I can write r divided by 3. So it's 12 less than r divided by 3, or r divided by 3 minus 12. In example C, we have kind of a tricky problem, and you'll see why in a second. So we have the product of 10 and the difference of a number t and x. So it's the product of 10 and the difference of a number t and x. Product says that we're going to multiply it. So we're going to have 10 times the difference of a number t and x, so t minus 6. Now because of the order of operations, the way this is written, this doesn't say 10 times the difference of t and 6. This says 10 times t and then minus 6. If we want to make sure we're actually multiplying by the difference of t and 6, we have to put parentheses around here to make sure that the subtraction comes before the multiplication. So another way to write this would be 10 times t minus 6, like that. We can just put 10 in front of the parentheses here, and that way we don't need the multiplication sign like we have over here. So this is the best way to write this one. And we're going to have a similar situation in example D here. we have 7/10 of the sum of a number y and 2. So 7/10 of, remember we said that's usually when we're going to take a fraction and multiply it by something to find the fraction of that number. So 7/10 times the sum of y and 2, similar situation here. We're multiplying 7/10 by the sum of y and 2, so we have to make sure it's in parentheses.